So I take back everything I said last week. I love the Olympics.
Yeah, I knew you would.
IOC is great. Everything I've ever said about the Olympics for the last couple of years, all the corruption, all
I
the
love
bribery,
it.
it's great.
Yeah, seeing it in person really made me think all that corruption is worth it.
I was wrong.
Yeah,
I'm the problem.
yeah.
Not them. Me. Hopefully
you'll just listen to me in future.
So we're fresh off the back of the Olympics. What was it? Today's Thursday. We were back Sunday.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, very sleep deprived.
Very tired.
I think 2 out of the 3 nights we got about an hour and a half sleep. So Thursday night we drove up late to Dublin, and it's about a 3-hour trip from us. And then our flight was at 7 or something, so we had to get to the airport by like 5, 4. We got there at 4. So
I think our taxi arrived at 3 a.m. Or no, sorry, my alarm went off at 10 to 3.
Yeah. So
leaving.
Then got to Paris. Saw the 89s. That first session was great. And we met up with Clarence. Great to see Clarence again.
Yeah. Clarence in great form. Clarence's physique is the most off-the-wall thing I've seen.
It always is, though, really, isn't it?
But I feel like this current iteration of Clarence Kennedy is crazy. He's like the Abercrombie model, like, basically he's lost a load of weight, but his upper body has gotten more jacked.
So he's doing a lot of rock climbing weighted pull-ups. He said he's doing some squatting, not much.
He wouldn't tell us how much weighted pull-up weight, though.
No, he wouldn't tell us because he wanted to. I think he wants to make like a video. But there's a video of him on his channel doing it, one of those vlogs, and there was like 60 kilos for a pull-up single or something. So I think he said he's 88 kilos now, which is that's the lightest I've ever known him to be, I think.
Yeah. In some of his early videos, he was like 87. Was there like 230 for 5x5 pause? Was he 87 then?
Maybe he would have been actually. You know what? Did he do? We were watching some of his videos there earlier before, and the changes in his physique are crazy. There's really no one like Clarence physically when you think about it.
No, he is the freakiest of freaks.
Gabriel reckons he could do 200 snatch, 240 kilo clean and jerk. Well, what Gabriel said, if I had Clarence's power, I'd do 200, 240.
Yeah.
Which Gabriel did.
Yeah.
Gabriel just needed 10 kilos more body weight.
Yeah.
So I think Clarence was he like 100 and something kilos when he was doing those biggest lifts, I think?
Yeah, he's always around 100, wasn't he?
He's massive, though.
Huge. Humongous.
Yeah. Traps are enormous.
He's a different 100 kilos from what I am.
We all are, Dara.
We certainly are.
Some of us are 118 kilos, you know?
Yeah.
They're in the room with us right now, I think.
Not right now, though.
Someone's in the room with us.
Not right now, though.
So I got to say, I enjoyed the Olympics, not going to lie.
Yeah, the Olympics is unbelievable. So when you go to like a big rugby match or an All-Ireland final, for the people who are in Ireland, you'll know the buzz. But a load of people in the same place, there's a great buzz. There's a big kind of vibe going on. Everyone's buzzing. But I think the fact that the Olympics goes on for so long and it basically takes over the entire city, that buzz is elongated, and it doesn't seem to be diluted down at all.
So there's weirdly segregated events. So I thought the events would be closer together, but obviously Paris doesn't have a lot of free space in the city centre, so lots of events were pretty far away. But walking around the city, you didn't really get that far from the Olympics itself. One really interesting thing, and it's actually great if you're going to see the Olympics, was that a lot of taxi drivers and hoteliers and stuff were saying that there's actually hardly any tourists here compared to normal month of August. So like the markets, the Champs-Elysees at the street, normally they'd be absolutely thronged. We said there's just no one here, which was actually great. It was really quiet.
It was very quiet, and even like around the Eiffel Tower is obviously always buzzing, and there's a good group around there, or a big crowd around there. But you go like one street down or one block down, as the Americans might say, and it was just Olympic people.
There was a lot of Olympics events around, like across from the Eiffel Tower. There was the the volleyball thing.
Yeah, beach volleyball.
Very popular event for some reason.
Yeah,
some of the female one is really popular. I see a lot of memes about it.
I wonder why that is, Owen.
And then we had the Stade de France at all the athletics, which seemed to be packed to the rafters.
That is one thing I'd love to see, is like be at the Stade de France for a day for track and field events. I'd say that would be insane.
So last week we talked about, governmental problems, talking about certain things like that, and they had allegedly spent €1 billion to clean the Seine. And someone was like, no, they did clean it up in the comments, and I'm interested to see.
Yeah.
But then the Irish swimmers was hospitalised and missed the medal ceremony. Waffen, is it?
Yeah.
He missed it, so he got a really bad dose of some kind of...
Was that
infection
from the water, though?
Yeah.
Do we know that's confirmed?
I think they reckon. I think other swimmers have gotten sick as well.
Okay.
I'd fact check that, but it's a shit talk, so we won't. He said it was for water.
I would see if that's correct, but due to the fact that this video,
I think he said it himself as
Okay.
well. Maybe it happened shortly after,
yeah,
so he had to go to the hospital. And I'm sure they would have done tests on bacterial infection if they're trying to find a specific antibiotic that might help with it.
he seems like a great guy. Have you watched any interviews with him?
Not really.
So him and his brother are both elite level swimmers. Obviously, he made the Olympic finals and won medal. They win 2 medals.
2 medals, wasn't it?
So unbelievable achievement. But they were interviewing his brother before the first Olympic final, and they're like, "Oh, you know, you and your brother always swam together. Did you ever dream of your brother being up there on the Olympic podium?" And his brother just turns to the camera and is like, "Of course, I never dreamt of my brother being up there. I dreamt of me being up there." And then they interviewed with him afterwards, or like at the end of the games, and they were like, "Oh, are you buzzing for LA?" And he was like, yeah, hopefully my brother will be up there with me next time, but obviously I'll still get gold.
Sometimes reporters just ask the dumbest things.
Yeah.
There was a big hullabaloo in the weightlifting community about the lackluster weightlifting commentary.
Yes.
But see, it is really unique to weightlifting. So if you go to other sports, you'll get people who are former players or they know something about the sport. Like if you listen to the basketball and the Irish thing, your man was clearly a massive basketball fan, even though, as we established last week, basketball is terrible to watch. But every sport, if you watch any BBC coverage or anything like that, you'll have multiple ex-Olympians, and you'll have like a kind of color commentator who knows how TV works, and then you'll have that kind of ex-pro athlete or a coach or someone, and you get this nice dynamic across most of them. But the thing is with weightlifting is they just don't care about weightlifting. So Germany had Mark Huster, who was Demas's great rival, very aficionado with weightlifting, so he's going to be a great commentator, I assume, at a minimum, if he knows anything about weightlifting, which I'm sure he does. But for weightlifting, for the other ones, like the Australian one, any of the other English-speaking ones, we just have to accept that it's never going to be Sika strength,
I think as well, you can't have 2 color commentators. It can't be me and you being like, "Oh my God, it's amazing."
Yes, you can.
You need a play-by-play guy or girl there. Yeah. You need someone to be like, second attempt, 147 kilos, made the first attempt.
We're just not great at that.
And then we're terrible at it.
Yeah.
There's some of the ones like when I'd be like listening back to those videos and you're like, we haven't talked about weightlifting in 10 minutes.
That's what the people want, though.
I know, it's entertaining, but I think you do need a professional commentator there.
No, you do, for sure.
Now, what I will say about some of the other sports, I've seen 2 other sports. Rock climbing is one, and I can't think of the other one. But rock climbing, they basically had a phrase sheet, so it went across like 3 or 4 different channels, and it was like, went for the over-under pinch grip on that one, or it was like reaching, and they were all using the same phrases.
Yeah.
And people were like, "Oh my God, the commentary was terrible."
Okay.
So obviously there's other sports like that, like niche sports like rock climbing, the same way weightlifting would be very niche.
That nobody cares about.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Very unfortunate, yeah.
Well, more people care than ever.
I don't get how they don't have someone like Magnus Mitmo there, and Magnus is like, "This is how we do it. You reach with your hand, you grab it, it's called the dyno."
But it comes back to the thing we were talking about last week, like who's making the decisions for these things?
Yeah.
And who's agreeing with them, Like in most corporate scenarios, which is, I imagine what this is, it's a massive corporation, it's just the higher up makes the call and then the underlings just have to be kind of like, okay, let's fucking do it. I don't imagine there's this really great like dynamic work culture where it's like we're all in together, it's like everyone's responsible for everything,
Who's the up and coming name in weightlifting media?
No, it's like, how much is he? Like, get him in,
but that's the other thing as well, is like, you can't just be flying lads out there. Like that Australian commentary team, assumedly they were doing commentary for 3 or 4 different sports. They were out there for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That person's already on a full-time contract, so they don't have to pay them extra for being there or whatever. So it does just make more sense. It just leads to a terrible outcome.
Well, they've only 4 years to plan, like, so they don't have that much time to find good people, Now, on the other hand, to be fair, you do have to have people who are reliable and who are professionals.
Yes.
Like, you're not going to look at us, a YouTube channel, and be like,
those lads. See those lads.
We can
right
rely on
there?
them not to say anything egregious. Like, all we're going to say is stuff egregious, realistically.
Absolutely. And you have to have someone with
They've been talking about waffles for 10 minutes.
You have to have somebody with a bit of pedigree behind them as well, Like, they've commented on 150 domestic competitions. Now they've commented on 50 international competitions, and now they're commentating on the games. Versus these lads have made some edgy statements.
So Michaela Breeze obviously got in there somehow. I don't think she was there this time, if anyone wants to confirm that, but I didn't hear any rumblings of her. I suppose Max and Seb are probably a bit more reliable in that regard too.
Definitely.
They're unlikely to say something that will get, whoever kicked off the air, I'd imagine.
I feel like as well they have the kind of gravitas behind them, or they're starting to build it, definitely.
Possibly. Well, in relation to the Olympics, it's probably not like...
Yeah, sorry, that's probably nothing.
Yeah.
But as more and more of those go on and they get more of those rights, like obviously they put massive investment into getting to those competitions.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see something like that.
To be honest, I'm not sure I'd like to do it either. I don't think I'd like to be censoring the things I just really want to talk about.
But also, being there in person and getting to boo people, or like boo judges, obviously not the athletes, but like roaring out, be like, that's fucking bullshit.
Boo the jury.
Give him a fourth attempt. like that is very fun.
Yeah, we did try to start a fourth attempt for Miso, but
we did,
no one agreed to this, unfortunately. No. So we had... it was packed as well. Everything was basically sold out. I'd say there was, would you say less than 5% empty seats for most of them?
Oh, definitely. I'd say there is less than 1% empty seats for the supers.
89s were jam-packed as well.
Jam-packed, yeah. I'd say what happened with a lot of the 102 class, the fact that there might have been 5% empty seats is that you've got people who definitely want to see the supers.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I don't want to sit in the stadium for the entire day.
I did.
Those
cookies weren't great though. We spent €20 for 2 Coke Zeros and 2 cookies.
Yeah.
That's not right.
Not great.
That pizza was unreal though, that square pizza.
Very good.
What kind of ham was that?
It was just called jambon. It was just called ham.
When you brought that back, I was trying to hold my crutch and video things and hold the GoPro, but then I was like, I'm going to get grease everywhere, so I was videoing for a while. So I think that was 102, so there's a few missed lifts there.
Sorry, Lesman, we're not going to get that third snatch.
Actually, I think I missed some of these snatches because I just wanted to eat the food, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. I like the stadium setup as well. It was quite cool. Like, I like the thing of walking in underneath the stands into a bit of a tunnel, and then you kind of see the stage for the first time when you walk out.
Yeah.
Versus, like, most time for sporting events, you're walking into a big hall and you kind of just walk along and climb up the stand. There's something about going through a tunnel and seeing that stage for the first time.
Yeah. I was hobbling along, obviously, for a lot of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely astounded at the amount of people who came up to us. Couldn't fathom
Shocking. Very, very shocking.
We were both like, Jesus, for Clarence now, this is going to be mad. Everyone's going to come up to him thinking...
I did not think it was going to be an issue for us.
I really didn't. I did not comprehend. And I'm not saying this is false modesty, because I don't think we have any false modesty, but we were just like, oh yeah, Clarence, probably a lot of people might see Clarence. And then he said it. He was like, he was at the 73s the day before we went to the 89s, and he was like, yeah, I got kind of swarmed one of the days. And I was like, sure, look.
Yeah, won't be an issue today.
Yeah.
Cut to an hour and a half later where it was an issue.
I'd say 60 people in the space of half an hour, maybe. So the entrance after the tickets to the venue was probably 200 meters. They definitely took us 45 minutes to get up there.
Easily, yeah.
Could not comprehend it.
I don't even have the emotional capacity to process that in my brain. That's an amazing thing.
We were ambling around the streets earlier at Clarence, and we'd met a few people. I think like 3 people like in an hour who knew us. And we're like, that's cool. That was really interesting. Like, that's nice. And like, it's not that it never happens. It does happen sometimes. You're in airports or you're in big cities or something, and someone knows you or whatever. You're on holiday and it's nice. But this obviously didn't fathom that it was the highest concentration of people who will watch us from the weightlifting side of things possible.
Yes. One thing I really loved is you'd meet people. So like, it's great to meet everyone. Great people. Some really great interactions. Obviously, we met Benjamin. Really cool. Met Kyle. But then you get people and they're like, I've been running the programs for 2 years. And you're like, I need to grab you for 2 minutes.
Yeah. And
I was like, what do you like about that? What do you not like about that? Any feedback for us on the app?
Yeah.
Like, that's so valuable as well. It's just really cool. We met a good few people who were like, I had a really bad plateau in my weightlifting, or couldn't push my squat for ages, ran the programs. And they're like, oh, yes.
I've got to say, social media gave Parisians a bad rap leading up to this. So I'd been to Paris once when I was like 6. I think it was like the only family holiday we'd been on, one of 2 or something. And obviously I had no interactions with the people of Paris realistically then. And so social media has been giving Paris a really bad rap, specifically if you try to speak French to them. Obviously I don't have any French, so that wasn't ever going to be an issue, but people were building up for this, the fact that Parisians are really rude. But it actually turned out that pretty much all but one interaction, maybe 1.5, people were very, very, very nice.
Amazing. I think Paris gave itself a very good showing of itself, is what I'd say there.
It looks really nice.
Yeah.
I'm really enamored by it.
I've definitely been to France a lot of times, and I will say Paris was showing its best side when we were over there.
There was a lot of armed guards
Oh my God.
everywhere.
I would say that concentration of automatic weapons has never been seen in the 2000s
Yeah,
in a single city in Europe.
since World War II, probably.
Lads, it was mental.
Crazy.
And all the different sections. Obviously, you had the gendarme, you had like the federal
Police.
something. Then you had the military. Some guys are,
Military were rigged out.
my God. Some guys are there with like 14.5-inch M4s, fully rigged out. Other guys are there with G36s. Other guys are there with MP5s by like the H&K MP5s.
Yeah.
It was an impressive display of weaponry, and they're all in immaculate shape.
That's true. One or two of them actually definitely knew us, because there was one massive fella and he was like this, like waving across the street.
Yeah.
He was huge, so
Units.
that's what you should be. You
Yeah.
should be on steroids and in really good shape.
100%.
Performance enhancing steroids, not just purely aesthetic. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you need to be able to run a mile and still shoot.
I will say every single one of those armed police or military people or whatever, all of those defense force people that were there, you'd look at them and be like, yeah, that's exactly what you should look like.
Men and women are all in great shape.
Yeah.
Their shoes look really comfy as well. Do you notice their boots?
I didn't notice the boots.
Their boots look super comfy. They were like a men between work boots and hiking boots.
Yes.
And if you put like 5% runner in there,
Yeah.
they looked very, like, someone had thought about it, I feel.
Yeah.
They look comfy. They were standing all day, there for a long time. They were in big groups as well, actually. There was like groups of 6 and 8 pretty much everywhere. No one was by themselves or in that effect.
What I will say as well is another group of people who were in immaculate shape and looked exactly how they should look is all the loaders.
Yeah.
So the loaders were they all French international weightlifters?
Usually, yeah. Well, not international.
Or,
but
well,
not
they
really
were-
locals.
They were definitely weightlifters.
Yeah.
Everybody was jacked. Everybody was in great shape. They sprinted onto the stage every single time, load the bar. One person would stay, double check everything, roll the bar back, and then they'd all wait standing until the last person came back to the seat, all sit down at the same time. It's a well-oiled machine.
I will say I didn't really get any great pastries in France. I'm not gonna lie. I was hoping for another level of pastry, but I mostly got shop bought stuff, and I suppose the Olympic stuff was not great. But I got a couple of stuff in the Intermarchés and stuff, and like I got some brioche, and that was poor.
I feel like you need to be going to a Parisian bakery at 7 a.m.
Yeah, I know, I agree with you, but we didn't get that opportunity, or
No.
didn't present itself.
No, and I think you'd have to kind of go and be walking the streets early in the morning to get that experience.
Do you know what I really like was their style of indoor-outdoor cafes. And you could just be there for a while, and lots of people are there for a long time, and there's no feeling of like, oh, you should be kind of leaving now. Like, it was kind of lounging, very relaxed atmosphere in a lot of those places, which is not unique to Paris, but that kind of genre of that kind of cafe is unique to Paris, you know.
Very European.
It's super French, though, from what I could see there. Like,
Yeah.
it's a little bit more... So obviously you'll see if you go to tourist cities, tourists will be like that, but a lot of locals were just enjoying their day, like on Saturday and stuff. And
Have
Friday.
their newspaper,
I like that.
a little shot of espresso.
Slow down a little bit.
Yeah, definitely where we met Clarence the first morning was very much one of those cafe vibes.
Yes.
Took 40 minutes to be able to order. People just kind of amble around, everyone sipping. I like to see dogs as well in the place.
Yeah, you see a lot of European cities do like their dogs.
Yeah,
Rome was big on dogs as well.
yeah.
There's one thing as well, Clarence, for some reason, that GoPro fish angle, so when he's sitting on the window, I meant to say it, he looks way smaller than he does. So I know people are, you know, throwing out stuff there, and Clarence has talked about some of it before or whatever, but he's not that small. 'Cause we're just
Oh,
like,
God, no.
No, he looks...
Oh, no.
He looks like... I was watching that footage back on the GoPro, and when you see in the window, he just looks way smaller, and that angle lens has really fucked him for some reason.
My God, he's yacked.
Yeah, he's very, very much... He's not skinny. Like, he looks really athletic.
I would say his upper body, maybe not his like traps upper back, but his upper body, shoulders, arms, lats is probably bigger than it was before. But he said it himself, he's lost everything from his quads and his glutes.
I don't think he'll mind saying it, but he's not done with weightlifting, or he's not done with weightlifting training anyway.
Yeah, that made me very excited when I heard that.
Yes, because when we'd last spoken to him, I suppose, the last time we saw him was in Japan.
Yeah.
He was very much at odds with weightlifting. It was very, I suppose, a difficult decision or a difficult thought process for him.
Yeah.
And then it would seem like the last, year, over a year now, I suppose, he was kind of done. But is that all right?
Yeah.
You're making me anxious.
Sorry.
He's definitely not done. He said that himself. See, he said that. So he's never going to be, I won't say never, but I don't think we're going to see a 100 kilo Clarence snatching 200 kilos. But a lot of you might be happy to know we might see a 90 kilo Clarence snatching 170 kind of thing, which would be very interesting.
Very interesting. I'd love to see as well what his technique looks like when he's 10 kilos lighter.
Have to imagine it's going to be way better.
Yeah, because his technique when he was younger was so nice to watch. Mm-hmm. Particularly on the snatch, it was massively different.
Yeah.
Like his clean technique is still gorgeous, really powerful, really fast. Very power.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see, hopefully he does go back and do some weightlifting. He seems to be really enjoying climbing, but hopefully he does go back. Just purely from a selfish point of view, I want to see it. People
do get into climbing, don't they? They get really obsessed with it.
I feel like climbing's similar to jiu-jitsu in that way, where it's very addictive.
He said you could spend 2 hours in the gym and not be that tired, compared to a big 2 hour weightlifting session, which isn't really the case, I suppose, for jiu-jitsu. Like, you do 2 hours of jiu-jitsu and you will be tired.
One thing I feel that rock climbing and jiu-jitsu have in common, though, is you have very definite outcomes in every session.
Yeah.
So you make it to the top of the wall, or you don't, or maybe you flash something that you've never done before, or maybe you're able to do a certain level or a certain grade of boulder that you haven't done before.
Yeah.
You don't really get that in weightlifting because 90% of your time is just spent banging your head against the wall. Like, every session is just a...
You're super keen on going to LA in 2028.
We're going, yeah.
I'd say, right now, I would say I probably won't.
Don't even put that out there. You don't even need to put those negative thoughts in your mind.
I'm probably not going to go.
You are. It's a long way away. 4 years.
No, it's a long way away. Who knows what'll happen? We'll see. It's just that, that's what, 20 hours of flying probably for us?
No.
Not far off it.
You probably get there in 11 hours.
No way. It's 5 to Boston. It's 7 to Boston on the way over.
And then 5 again.
No, I think it's further than that.
It's not that bad.
It's
not that bad.
One of the American weightlifters, Trevor, was saying that it's shorter to fly to Paris from Chicago than it is from him to get to LA. So it's probably close to, let's say, 17 or 18 hours. But we'll see. It's a long way away.
Yeah. I will say it's nowhere near as bad as the travel to Japan or Korea would have been.
Japan wasn't that bad. Just one direct flight from London.
Yeah. I feel like anytime I've been on the West Coast, you don't pay any attention to it.
We
particularly if we go and stay a few days on the East Coast.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm pretty happy with that experience. Paris, I was very impressed. I wasn't necessarily not looking forward to it, but I wasn't super amped up about it. Obviously, a lot of we were busy. I broke my foot and stuff, so I didn't really have much time to think about it. But I have to say, I really enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed the amount of Olympic merch around the place as well. We got some great New Zealand gear. Yes,
so there was a load of countries had team houses, they called them, with some bigger places, and we went to Team Japan, and all their merch was sold out.
Everything was gone.
It was all ASIC stuff, and it looked class.
They did say as well, though, that they didn't plan on selling to the public, so they basically just brought over enough to kind of sell to people who might be coming and visiting. So obviously they didn't have a lot to start off with.
Yeah.
We were trying to meet up with Kelly Starrett of Mobility WOD, and now
the Ready State now.
The Ready State. But he ended up just being on completely the other side of the city to us. We just couldn't make it work in terms of things we were going to and things he was going to. So he went for dinner with George St. Pierre instead.
He lost out. So we made it to Team New Zealand house and we got a nice bit of gear. Well, we spent a lot of money on a very small amount of gear.
Yes.
But apparently there was a load of people there and we got there and there was a big queue in front of us and behind us, and the very nice stewardess or representative or maitre d' or whatever you want to call her was like, yeah, so it looks like some American TikTokers made a load of TikToks about this and they just kind of blew up, and she said it's just been incredibly busy the last few days.
Apparently the Team Ireland house was supposed to be happening. So Team Ireland, of course, had their house set up in a pub, which obviously makes a lot of sense. But that was supposed to be the spot. So I'd love to hear if you have any personal experience, if you were over there and you saw what Team Ireland house was like. I'd love to have seen it.
Are you any more motivated to go training now?
Yeah, I got a big impetus for starting training, but then also I wrote out the outlines of a block yesterday, and then I woke up this morning with severe DOMS and half my face is melted. So maybe it was just the thought of that is what murdered me.
Maybe that's some kind of positive adaptation though.
Oh yeah, where my body is like, no!
How long was that first block you wrote out? Actually, I forgot to look.
3 and a bit months.
So kind of
3 months.
starting in kind of September-ish.
Yeah, 13 or 14 weeks.
So just kind of prepping yourself up a bit.
Yeah, maybe like a little good 5K time,
Mm-hmm.
and then a few squats.
30 minutes or so.
An 11-minute PB.
Yeah.
I think I'm just not even going to think about the mile for the time being. Just focus on 5K times roughly, and just get back to some sort of training.
I suppose a life-threatening kidney disease has kind of knocked you for 6 a little bit.
A little bit. It just knocked me off my...
What month was that? Was it April?
April, I would say.
May, June, July. So, you've had 3.5 months off now there.
Yeah.
Can you just...
Time to get back into it.
Look, you've had your break.
Yeah.
You haven't been doing much.
Get over it.
Get the fuck over it,
Yeah.
There's people waiting for that squat and run program.
There is.
And
Squat and run program is written.
Well, yeah, but we said we wouldn't do it until you'd done that. So
Yeah.
now
So maybe it will never come out.
You've really fucked us there, Darryl. You've really got us.
I have to do a 520 something mile and a 500 pound squat.
See,
Maybe I could do 525 on the squat and do a 525 mile. That's probably very doable.
Well, I suppose you've trapped yourself with these.
I have trapped myself within the confines of 5 and 500.
The reassuring thing for you must be that no one else has done it. Like 2 or 3 other people max have done it legitimately.
That is reassuring.
I don't want to signal anyone out here, right? But there's been a few sent to us over the last year, and the miles are all seem to be legit.
Mm-hmm.
And you never say it. You never say anything about it. But I'll be the first to say it. There's been a few where some of the squats haven't been squats. Like we minimum have to be below parallel. Otherwise, it's just fucking bullshit. Like you never say it, but I'm like that's nonsense. Like
there was one in particular, and I wasn't even commenting on it.
Yeah.
And you kept saying it, kept saying to friends who were
talking
to us about it,
yeah.
and then very high.
Very high. Like it was just because there's no like referee of this. It's not an official event anywhere. There's no organization.
Yeah.
But a lot of people in the comments of this particular one were like, there's no way that's a
higher
squat.
than Conor McGregor at a stout launch.
It looked like that individual could have gone lower as well.
Yeah. But still, it is still, even if it's 4 people have done it.
It has to be reassuring though.
You have to. There has to be no question marks.
No, but it has to be reassuring for you.
It is reassuring and also deeply worrying. Because why have more people not done it?
But, it must be some solace for you, the fact that you've, I won't say failed twice, but, well,
yeah,
I've
not succeeded
twice. Surely it must be reassuring that we've seen lots of people come and go over the last few years that they haven't done it either.
Yes.
It must be, what I always think, what would we see if this was an Olympic event and there was no constraints? It was the fastest mile and the heaviest squat. Like, what would you see?
What would you see?
Yeah, like, what would you see? How fast would people be running and how heavy would they be squatting? I don't think you'd see it much different, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know how many. There's definitely some freaks out there who just have never tried to attempt this. There's probably 50 people you'd get to do it. But the other thing that, and I'm not going to say take solace from, but is definitely like a more positive thing, is the amount of people who've been like, yeah, man, I'm training for that now. They'll reach out to you, be like, yeah, next year now I'm going to train for this big block. Nobody who said it to me that they're doing it has done it.
The original thing was actually a CrossFit thing, so you had to do 50 kipping pull-ups.
Well, that was added on after.
Yeah,
so Castro, it was originally Dave Castro just said it like 5 and 500 would be insane, and then I think a couple of years afterwards he was like, imagine how insane it would be if there was 50 pull-ups.
So we've definitely 3 people so far who've definitely done it. We can be sure. Yeah, Fergus Crawley, Adam Klink, and there's another
Jack D Fitness
on Instagram. He's squat.
Is it Jack O'Driscoll?
No, I doubt it.
Jack Driscoll.
I think curly hair. He definitely looked legit from the one I remember.
Oh yeah,
there was no doubt about that. But the that's what 3 so far. So, and the hybrid thing is getting bigger every year.
Hybrid's getting massive. I think as well the amount of people who are just doing more general training. I think we had a lot of people came in with CrossFit. A lot of people were hitting that hard. Then a lot of people specialized weightlifting, powerlifting, triathlon, and now you've a lot of those people, even in triathlon, who are kind of transitioning not out of triathlon but still doing a lot of training, but also lifting weights as well.
The problem is, and I think you'll see a very small percentage of people who can do the fast mile, who haven't really been strength training, get up to that number.
Yeah.
I think you're much more likely is people who can do that squat, get down to that running number.
Yes.
As smaller percentage of people that is, but I
Yeah.
think it's pretty significant when it comes to actually doing the event.
Absolutely. And when you look at the people who've done it before, like when you look at Clink, when Clink did it first, Clink
Yep.
was squatting 220 kilos or more
Yeah.
multiple times
Yeah.
in the couple of months running up to it. And then he was just really smashing the running, you know. Like he's doing 240 or 250 back squat, I think.
Is he?
Yeah, it's big anyway, but also a lovely looking squat. I will say, of everyone who's done it so far, Clink's squat is
For sure.
the nicest.
I've got to say I'm biased in this, and I think it should be high bar and deeper. You know, that's just my opinion. Again, it's just there's no event,
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
can have opinions like that.
That's when there's no constraints. You can't really,
Yeah.
you can't even comment on it.
I can't because I'm not doing it. And the trial of internet court,
Yes.
I tried with my foot. You know,
Oh yeah, that's the reason.
there's been a lot going on with CrossFit weekend.
Yeah.
We didn't want to put it on the news show or anything, and we didn't want to put on the title of this or anything, but we've been talking about it a lot.
Yeah.
And
Obviously.
last year, I think it was 23 people drowned in triathlons. 2 of those were in Ireland.
Yeah.
I couldn't get over that number. I don't know.
I didn't know it's 23 people.
That was worldwide.
Okay.
Which-
So I know 2 people in the Ironman.
One of them had a heart attack, I think, didn't he?
I think so.
While he was swimming.
It's very difficult as well. Someone made this point to us at the weekend. It's a good point that even in the cases of drowning, a lot of the time it's cardiac arrest will be put down as,
Yes.
you know, so it is really difficult. Obviously, it's a terrible, terrible situation. It's also a terrible situation when everything is so public and everybody involved in the competition is incredibly public. All of their comments are very, very public. And I think you are always better just having that bit of a step back on things like that, even if you're an athlete, having a step back. And you obviously want to make your opinions known and you want to support certain things, but it is always better just to kind of give that the grace it deserves, you know.
So we watched the video, and before I'd seen the video, I'd been like, oh look, it could be very easy. It's something you just slipped under. You might never have seen him, but it does seem for quite a while that they call it climbing the ladder when you're drowning, and there was, by the looks of things, 2 of these paddle boarders within 20 feet of him.
Yeah.
And it looked like they were watching the finish line rather than watching what was happening. So it's so grim. It's just something so. There's obviously a lot of terrible things happening.
Yeah.
In the world.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
You know, but there's something about this is so tragic because it was many of those things are needless also.
Yeah.
But this particular thing is so needless because I think it was Vellner who said, like, it's not Navy SEAL training. We're just in CrossFit. Like, so what the fuck are you doing with us? Like,
yeah. And I think as well you have to, like, that point of it's not Navy SEAL training is very, very valid because there's always an onus of responsibility on someone. Like you'll have seen that back in the day with the old games documentaries. You always saw Castro incredibly stressed due to that onus of responsibility being there, not only for running the event, but obviously you'd have to be make sure everything is safe and in a good position. But at what point does that greater amount of people involved and greater amount of responsibility shared, at what point is there nobody who's in trouble? You know, at what point is it kind of cast up? Like, where does the group kind of come into it as being responsible, or who's responsible? Is it that individual on the paddleboard?
yeah.
Is it the person who wrote the workout program? Is it the person who designed the games? Is it the people who are in charge of the safety statements and the SOPs for emergency situations? Like, somebody has to be responsible. You don't necessarily need to nail them to the post or whatever on it, but
Someone will be, I'd say.
yeah, like where does that buck stop? Like a lot of people will say that buck stops with Castro or that buck stops with CrossFit HQ, but it's a hazard to even say it's an interesting thing to think about because obviously it's incredibly tragic, but it is something you definitely need to be thinking about. Like there's a lot of people who are listening to this who are involved in competitions, planning competitions, maybe you're volunteering at competitions. Like where does that buck stop? Like if you have an athlete in front of you who is going to do everything in their power to finish something or to finish it in first place or whatever it is, or push themselves to the next level, like you'll see it basically every sporting event, but particularly in CrossFit when it's just a work capacity thing, you just get through it, you grind as hard as you possibly can. Like Ross Edgley's talked about that, of having a great team of people around him who will just be like, pull it, we're stopping it here, you know.
That's very true, actually.
Like he had rhabdo after one of the longest swim attempts,
and he had some form of cellulitis.
Yeah. So like there's people around you. Obviously in Ross's case it's different because Ross is one person with a support crew around him. He's very close to that support crew. And I think in a situation like that, even if it was at the games where if you had a support crew of 5 or 6 people monitoring you all the time, I'm sure a lot of those accidents would be less likely to happen, and the same in triathlon or Ironman.
But I'd say the argument for that is if you can't afford that much support crew per person, you shouldn't be doing open water swimming. In the Texas heat. It's something I didn't really know about until last year, but Ross Edgley tried a swim in a lake in Italy because he did the one in, I was going to say Loch Catan, but in the one in the Loch Ness. What's that lake called again? Loch Ness, yeah. So it's interesting, the Irish word for loch is the same as Scots Gael, which is loch as well. But he tried one then, it was too cold in Loch Ness, so he went to a warmer place, but then during that attempt, it ended up as there was this freak, basically heat dome it's caused, came up from like North Africa or something and just pinned itself over where he was swimming. So he eventually had to get out of the water because the water was the water warmer than his body temperature. So it really fucked him. So Texas heat is obviously outrageous. And I would just be wondering, why the fuck would you be doing open water swimming like in this event for these people? You know, it's unlikely any of them have done any serious amount of open water swimming. After a 3.5 kilometer run, which is basically a sprint for them, because their run times, remember they're running 5Ks, was it last year or the year before? There was like 17-18 minute people for big dudes and big girls. Like they're going to sprint 3.5K in the Texas heat, they're fucked, and you're putting them into open water swim and you looks like you've 2 lifeguards. Like I know nothing about organizational events in regards to open water swimming. I've never done a triathlon. I don't know anyone. Well, I do know people who do it, but I don't know anyone who organises events.
You're sitting in a room with a triathlon member here.
But when you look at it, like, why put them in the pool like you did a couple of years ago? It's just stupid.
I think there's other risks involved with it being in open water as well that are less controllable. Like in a pool, you control the quality of the water. You also have an idea for water temperature and can probably control that to a certain extent. But also like the things of a lot of hot air coming down on top of water, that bubble of air sitting on top of the water is obviously very, very warm, less dense, less oxygen carrying in that air. You know, there's a massive amount of stuff going on there.
But even if, let's say, Lazar started drowning in a pool, he's 8 feet down, someone can get him immediately. The bottom of a lake, they have to get divers to go get him. Like, Jesus Christ. What the fuck is, like, that's, I think, before you even look at number of lifeguards, team per person, it is, do we really need to do an open water swim in really warm heat? And like before you even get to those SOPs, you get to the procedures if someone's drowning, you'd say, is there a greater risk than there need to be for someone dying here? Then you'd go, let's not do an open water swim in Texas heat. Or ever. Why would you do any of it? What's surprising is that there's been other regional CrossFit competitions or non-CrossFit affiliate competitions who have had open water swims. And it's, to be honest, surprising that it didn't happen in one of those first. It's like they've had ocean swims and stuff in some comps. It's very surprising. Like a lot of European competitions, not a lot, but there's been some. It's surprising that someone hasn't drowned in one of those, to be honest.
And I'm sure this is kind of one of those cases where it'll probably never happen again, or you can only hope it'll never happen again.
You'd be surprised.
You would be surprised, but that's still no solace or no consolation for that, you know. Yeah,
it was very tragic. We were watching it, so someone let us know during the live stream on Thursday with 73s. But there was no word what happened then, and then obviously the day after, the CrossFit community is obviously in uproar. But yeah, we didn't want to, as I said, didn't want to put the news show at the title of this or things on to capitalise on it, but it is something I suppose, I don't want to say worth talking about, but it's certainly a very big event that happened.
Definitely. And definitely I think with the people who watch our videos and stuff, a lot of gym owners, a lot of people who are competitive athletes who are involved in these competitions, whether they're competing in them, running in them, coaching them, whatever it is, you know, and it is something you definitely have to think about. Definitely, I think if you're a coach, as coaches, we're in the really awkward position many times where you have an injured athlete or an athlete who's not in the best shape due to previous events of that competition, and they just want to keep going. You see it all the time. If you coach a rugby team, football team, whatever it is, you'll have somebody who will strap it up and get on with it all day. But it's your responsibility, you know, to make that call. It's your responsibility to be the dickhead who just says, like, no more.
You'd have to imagine people like Rogue now have surely seen an opportunity here to make a bigger, better competition. Like,
Oh yeah.
not to say they're going, not to signal Rogue, but someone's going to try and make a go for it here, make a run for the gap. And you'd have to imagine there's a possibility of next year, like Rogue have had those competitions, but you'd imagine it'd be possible for them to cobble together more. So I think it's like $300,000 for the winner for male and female this year,
Yes.
which isn't a whole lot when you think about it. But I think CrossFit as a company are under duress.
Yeah.
But I would suspect next year you'd have to imagine someone, if they have the possibility, is try get something similar to CGI and ADCC.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd be surprised if someone wasn't thinking about it and see if they can make it happen.
Definitely.
And it probably wouldn't be a harm, because I bet you Rogue would run a better, safer competition than CrossFit seemed to be able to do. Or someone, the equivalent of someone.
It's hard to know as well. Like, there's obviously a lot of talent in that CrossFit HQ group.
Yeah.
Like, they've run big events for years, you know. Like, but as I said, the buck has to stop somewhere. I also think as well, big organizations like High Rocks and stuff are probably very much so looking at this and saying, how can we make sure nothing like this ever happens? Because like, obviously they don't have open water swims, there's a bit of running involved, but even somebody going into cardiac arrest, like most gyms will have a defib machine there. They might have a volunteer or a paid for paramedic group there at most of the events now. But they're probably looking at that now being like, this is priority number 1 rather than it being priority number 2, 3 or 4.
You'd wonder though, is it? I could very easily see companies just being also like, nah, that won't happen to us.
Yeah.
But I suppose at the end of the day, then when that kind of things happen, you know, cardiac events like that, how much control does an event have? Like, it's either have the event or don't have it, you know, if you're trying to reduce the possibility of, like, open water swimming and drowning is like, does it have to be here? Probably not. Okay, let's not do it. You know, it's not like, you know, if they're like, I don't know, what's it like, diamond? What are the really dangerous slopes?
Double black diamond,
say, in the CrossFit Games. Be like, we're going to add that in this year.
Yes. Where's that line?
Yeah, what do you do? Like, that's, in my mind, that's kind of the equivalent with open water swimming.
Or even like downhill mountain biking.
Yeah.
You know, or like if it's, they call it hybrid, or there's some name on it where it's like some uphill, some downhill. Like, that sort of stuff is highly dangerous.
But one of the I think it's James Newbury, he's an Australian CrossFitter. I think it was either his sternum, his back, he broke it doing mountain biking in Australia. He was on the teams this year.
Okay.
He's got a dreadlocks kind of.
Yeah, I know him. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he broke some of his vertebrae. It was definitely broke something pretty seriously, and he was mountain biking.
Yeah.
So, like, is it the equivalent of that? I feel like it's stupid, like, just to make that decision in the first place.
Why are you doing that? Yeah. This kind of brings us off on a bit of a tangent now, but
could Ross Edgley do the 5-minute 5 mile?
Could he do it?
Yeah.
I saw his running stride, and his running stride looks pretty nice.
What were we going to say there? Sorry.
On the case of, so obviously you mentioned ADCC and CGI earlier.
Yeah.
For those of you who aren't involved in jiu-jitsu, basically ADCC was the biggest no-gi jiu-jitsu competition in the world for years, but they gave no money to athletes. Craig Jones, the second best jiu-jitsu no-gi grappler in the world, went and started his own run. He's giving $1 million prize to the winner of the unders and over 80 kilos. But
yeah.
So in the last few weeks, obviously, Craig is openly using performance-enhancing drugs. A lot of CrossFit. Jeez, that was a Freudian slip. A lot of jiu-jitsu athletes openly use performance-enhancing drugs, or even if not openly, kind of clearly use them. And in a number of competitions, he gets his blood pressure checked beforehand. And even today, you'll have seen he had a story up where he's like, new PB, highest ever blood pressure.
No, jeez.
And it's an issue. He talked about it with Derek, more plates, more dates, because obviously Merrick Health are sponsoring the CJI, and look, there's a lot of people using performance enhancing drugs in jiu-jitsu. It's clearly a risk.
Yeah.
In jiu-jitsu, you don't have something like, obviously it's cardiovascular endurance is very important there, but at what point do you got someone showing up to something like the CrossFit Games and their health markers are at a risky enough point where you pull the plug on them? Like, Broderick has talked to us before about endurance athletes being the most dangerous athletes of any people he deals with. He talks about their
why is that?
Red blood cell count being so high, their blood volume being so high.
Well, he said he's in their blood like syrup.
Yeah, so you basically have incredibly viscous blood, which is amazing for competing in highly aerobically demanding sports, but very, very dangerous because the outcomes of obviously increased risk of cardiovascular issues or instances occurring. Like, what point is a competition responsible for making sure their athletes are healthy enough to compete?
I don't think the competition has any responsibility to an individual's health coming into competition. I think you have to provide a safe environment to compete in within the rules that everyone's agreed upon, and then there obviously has to be a minimum standard of non-neglect. Like, it can't be like, oh, there was a nail, and it was in the mat and it did puncture. Like, you've things like safe competition environment, reasonable rules set, I would say, and then it can't be on you to be policing athletes for being idiots. Like, the another thing about that is, so obviously PD use in the no-gi side of jiu-jitsu is pretty open, and Craig has talked about asking people he knows, his friends, other competitors, and they'll never tell him. He knows they're lying to him, or they won't tell him, or they'll kind of hedge their bets. And he's said how much he's on, and people never believe him because they're like, you're not that big, like. But there is an argument, I think, to be made for. It's a very interesting conversation because there's an argument to be made for keep it secret, because there is a lot of younger jiu-jitsu athletes, and we get them all the time asking us, and they're like, what PEDs should I use? And we're like, none. They're like, when should I use them? Never. The problem with that is that there's some kind of a protective mechanism when everyone's pretending everyone's not doing it, which is unfortunate because it's not as fair then. But I suppose some people are being protected when it comes to the kind of be cloak and daggers a little bit when people aren't really talking about it, but it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right to be hiding it in that kind of way. Like, it feels wrong, but you are definitely protecting, especially younger males. But if you look at CrossFit, the effects on younger males are pretty bad. But if you're a teenager using PEDs, it's obviously even more egregious. So it seems to happen anyway, regardless. So are you really getting any protection then?
It's a very difficult one again, because there's cases out there now where you can clearly point at somebody falling out of that sport. Clearly, you would think that they were enhanced from a young age. And like, that 15-year-old girl isn't going and buying that gear on her own. That 15-year-old girl, even if she does do it all on her own.
But there's no way a 15-year-old girl is going to get the inertia up to be like, this is what I'm going to take.
100%. And also, as a coach, now suddenly they go from an 85 kilo clean and jerk to power cleaning 105.
Well, if my 15-year-old girl is leaner than me and she's got fucking shoulders bigger than me, I'm probably going to be like, are you in PEDs by any chance?
And it happens in sport all the time where a coach or someone close to the athlete will just pull them and be like, you're injured, you're hurting yourself here, you need to stop doing this. Like, the responsibility falls on the adults that are around you to be like, you need to be, whatever's going on here, I'm not saying anything is going on, but whatever's going on here needs to stop. So it's hard. It's the negative side of sports, but it definitely has to be talked about.
Do you think Ross Edgy could do the 5-minute mile and squat?
Yeah.
I don't know what he squatted though. His legs aren't that big.
Aren't they?
For obvious reasons. He tries to keep them pretty small.
I do know he was doing some testing, I think in Loughborough, and they put on the Kipchoge's marathon record, or the more recent marathon record, and they put it on a treadmill. He has a pretty nice running stride. I could definitely see him putting up some great 400 meter times. Whether he could do a mile, I surely think he could. Obviously, he has unbelievable ability to put up with pain for a long period of time. The squat probably is difficult for him.
I'd say he could do that squat though. He's benched, I'm sure he's benched like 180 or 190. I'm sure I've seen a video. So, if you've the strength capacity to do that, no offense to anyone, but a 227 squat isn't.
Oh, it's not.
It's not the upper echelons of strength. It's way more than the vast majority of non-gifted people do. But if you're someone who's in a position where you're, if you're already in a position to be a strong athlete, a power athlete, like a 227 squat isn't like, it's like, oh yeah, okay. For the average population, it's amazing. It's unbelievable. It's something most people won't ever squat.
Yeah, but if you're one of the best athletes currently in the world in your field, and it looks like that field could have a bit of crossover, clearly he holds muscle very well. Clearly he trains very well and has a lot of good people around him.
I'd argue actually the muscle mass for squatting in that region is probably the most important thing.
Yes.
And not necessarily anatomical predisposition, muscle fiber makeup, or even coordination for squatting.
Oh, definitely.
I would say you could just muscle mass your way through that.
Yeah.
But could you muscle mass your way through that and then go run a 4:59 mile? You know?
It's hard to know because, like, we talk about the squat not being a phenomenal squat. It's a good squat, but it's by no means. It's not like one of these things where no matter what most people do, they'll never squat 300 kilos. Like, you have to be at a certain level. You have to be able to do that. And you're probably born being able to squat 300 kilos or not. No matter what else goes on around that, no matter what your training history is, that's probably predetermined early on. Now, the 5 minute mile is not one of those things. You're not born a 5 minute mile runner.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
Do you think most people could run a 5 minute mile?
Most people with a bit of training and talent could, I'd say.
Do you reckon?
I think so, yeah. It's not crazy.
Maybe a 6 minute mile, but 5 minutes, do you reckon?
I think so. I think if you looked at most
I don't know.
really fit, in good shape, late teens, early 20s.
I suppose most humans are predisposed to more running than something else, I suppose.
Yeah. And if you look at, like, guys getting 11s, 12s, 13s on a beep test, like, you're going to be able to do good mile times.
You just have to leg it, really, don't you?
You just have to run, like, And especially when you look at what like, over 1,000 people have ran a sub 4 minute mile. You know, you're born a 4:10 or 4:20 minute miler.
Yeah, but what's the distribution between going from 1,000 people doing a 4 minute mile to down to 5 minutes? Like, you know, like, is that going from a 300 squat to a 275 squat? You know, or is that going from a 200 squat to 200 or 300 squat to 200 kilo squat?
I don't know.
You know,
it's definitely not linear. It's definitely not just that you add 20% or take 20% off and it's the same thing. I do think there's probably a lot more people alive in the world right now who are able to or have ran a sub 5 minute mile than can squat 227 or
for sure. Yeah, like legit squatters.
Yeah. It's one of those interesting thought experiments because you're never going to get that data. Like,
is there more doors or windows? Like,
yeah,
there's obviously more windows. Even
when you take into account internal doors in a building.
No, that doesn't count. Outdoors.
I think that's where the big argument comes from.
Still more windows.
Who knows?
Most rooms with a door will probably have a window, you know?
Yes, but... Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
And might have multiple windows.
Very likely to have multiple windows. Are we talking about 1.5 windows per doors?
Probably, like. And if you go to skyscrapers, you know...
Craziness.
That's all windows.
But then at what point does a big window become more than one?
I think a pane is a window, you know? So you've got...
one pane of glass?
Thousands of...
If this background behind us is one big window...
Yeah.
That's just one window, though.
Yeah, if there was a join in the middle, I feel like it's two windows.
Even like a strip of mastic down the middle?
Yeah, that's two windows.
Would you call that two?
Maybe not mastic, but if there's a very definitive change in the pane of glass, like I'm saying two windows.
Oh, it's an interesting one.
Thanks for watching today's news show. Let us know if you think there's more doors or windows. And if you were at Paris and you said hello, nice to meet you. And if you are at Paris and you didn't say hello, well,
you know.
I hope you enjoyed.
Thanks, guys.